Chapter 4 of Raj Yoga. The psychic prana. According to the yogis, there are two nerve currents in the spinal column called Pingala and Ida, and there is a hollow canal called Shushumna running through the spinal cord. At the lower end of the hollow canal is what the yogis call the lotus of the Kundalini. They describe it as triangular in form, in which, in the symbolic language of the yogis, there is a power called the Kundalini coiled up. When that Kundalini awakens, it tries to force a passage through this hollow canal, and as it rises step by step, as it were, layer after layer of the mind becomes open, all these different visions and wonderful powers come to the yogi. When it reaches the brain, the yogi is perfectly detached from the body and mind. The soul finds itself free. We know that the spinal cord is composed in a peculiar manner. If we take the figure 8 horizontally, there are two parts, and these two parts are connected in the middle. Suppose you add 8 after 8, piled one on top of the other, that will represent the spinal cord. The left is the Ida, and the right the Pingala, and that hollow canal which runs through the center of the spinal cord is the Susumna. When the spinal cord ends in some of the lumbar vertebrae, a fine fiber comes down, and the canal is even in that fiber, only much finer. The canal is closed at the lower end, which is situated near what is called the sacral plexus, which, according to modern physiology, is triangular in form. The different plexuses that have their centers in the spinal cord can vary well, stand for the different lotuses of the yogi. The yogi conceives of several centers beginning with the Muladhara, the basic, and ending for with the Sahasrara, the thousand petaled lotus in the brain. So, if we take these different plexuses as representing these circles, the idea of the yogi can be understood very easily in the language of modern physiology. We know there are two sorts of actions in these nerve currents, one afferent, the other efferent, one sensory and the other motor, one centripetal and the other centrifugal. One carries the sensations to brain and the other from the brain to the outer body. These vibrations are all connected with the brain in the long run. Several other facts we have to remember in order to clear the way for the explanation which is to come. This spinal cord at the brain ends in a sort of bulb in the medulla, which is not attached to the bone but floats in a fluid in the brain, so that if there be a blow on the head, the force of that blow will be dissipated in the fluid and will not hurt the bulb. This will be an important fact as we go on. Secondly, we have also to know that of all the centers, we have particularly to remember three: the Moola Dhara, the basis, the Sahasrara, the thousand petaled lotus of the brain, and the Swadhisthana. Next, above the Mooladhara. Next, we will take one fact from physics. We all hear of electricity and various other forces connected with it. What electricity is, no one knows, but so far as it is known, it is a sort of motion. There are various other motions in the universe. What is the difference between them and electricity? Suppose this table moves, that the molecules which compose this table are moving in different directions. If they are all made to move in the same direction, it will be electricity. Electric motion is when the molecules all move in the same direction. If all the air molecules in a room are made to move in the same direction, it will make a gigantic battery of electricity of that room. Another point from physiology, we must remember that the center which regulates the respiratory system, the breathing system, has a sort of controlling action over the system of nerve currents. And the controlling center of the respiratory system is opposite the thorax in the spinal column. This center regulates the respiratory organs and also exercises some control over the secondary centers. Now we shall see why breathing is practiced in the first place. From rhythmical breathing will come a tendency of all the molecules in the body to have the same direction. When mind changes into will, the currents change into a motion. similar to electricity because the nerves have been proved to show polarity and direction of electric currents. This shows that when the will evolves into the nerve currents, it is changed into something like electricity. When all the motions of the body have become perfectly rhythmical, the body has, as it were, become a gigantic battery of will. This tremendous will is exactly what the yogi wants. This is therefore a physiological explanation of the breathing exercise. It tends to bring a rhythmic action in the body and helps us through the respiratory center to control the other centers. The aim of pranayama here is to rouse the coiled up power in the Muladhara called the Kundalini. Everything that we see or imagine or dream, we have to perceive in a space. This is the ordinary space called the Mahakasha or great space. When a yogi reads the thoughts of other men or perceives the supersensuous objects, he sees them in another sort of space called the Chitakasha, the mental space. When perception has become objectless and the soul shines in its own nature, it is called the Chidakasha or knowledge space. When the Kundalini is aroused and enters the canal of Shushmana, all the perception are in the mental space. When it has reached that end of the canal, which opens out into the brain, the objectless perception is in the knowledge space. Taking the analogy of electricity, we find that man can send a current only along a wire, but nature requires no wires to send her tremendous currents. This proves that the wire is not really necessary, but that only our inability to dispense with it compels us to use it. Similarly, all the sensations and motions of the body are being sent into the brain and sent out of it through these wires of nerve fibers. The columns of sensory and motor fibers in the spinal cord are the Ida and Pingala of the yogis. They are the main channels through which the afferent and efferent currents are traveling. But why should not the mind send the news without any wire or react without any wires? We see that this is being done in nature. The yogi says if you can do that, you have got rid of the bondage of matter. How to do it? If you can make the current pass through the Sushumna, the canal in the middle of the spinal column, you have solved the problem. The mind has made this network of the nervous system and has to break it so that no wires will be required to work through. Then alone will all knowledge come to us. No more bondage of body. That is why it is so important that you should get control of the Shushumna. If you can send the mental current through that hollow canal without any nerve fibers to act as wires, the yogi says you have solved the problem, and he also says it can be done.